Have you ever read a familiar verse in the Bible 100 times, only to realize you've been missing the most important part of the promise? When you feel completely stuck, trapped between a painful past and an impossible future, it's easy to read the scriptures and feel like they're just empty words. But there is a hidden, profound promise in Isaiah chapter 43 that most Christians completely misread. And it changes absolutely everything. Picture the prophet Elijah, absolutely exhausted and utterly broken, collapsing in the harsh, unforgiving shade of a solitary broom tree in the wilderness. The dust of the desert clings to his sweat-soaked skin, and the silence around him is heavy, pressing down on his chest like a physical weight. He has just experienced one of the greatest spiritual victories of his life on Mount Carmel. Yet here he is, running for his life from Queen Jezebel, terrified, isolated, and begging God to just let him die. He is entirely depleted. The adrenaline has faded, leaving behind nothing but a hollow, aching emptiness. He closes his eyes against the glaring sun, feeling completely trapped by his circumstances, convinced that his story has reached a miserable, inescapable dead end. There's no way forward, and he can't go back. Maybe you've felt exactly what Elijah felt in that barren wilderness tonight. Perhaps you're sitting in your own version of that desert right now, feeling the crushing weight of a situation that simply won't change. You've prayed, you've believed, you've fought the good fight, but you're just so incredibly tired. You look at the massive obstacles in front of you, the financial ruin, the broken relationship, the chronic illness, the silent heavens, and you feel like you're backed into a corner with no exit in sight. You're stuck, desperately waiting for a rescue that feels like it's never gonna come. We often turn to Isaiah chapter 43 when we're in these desperate, stuck places. It's a beautiful passage, and we usually focus right away on verse 2, where God says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you." It's such a comforting thought, isn't it? But here's the truth that so many of us misread or just skip over entirely. We forget to look at the very first word of that promise. God says when. He doesn't say if. He doesn't promise that our faith will somehow grant us a magical bypass around the raging rivers or the scorching fires of this life. We often pray for God to airlift us out of our problems. We beg Him to just remove the trial, to dry up the water, or to put out the flames before we even have to step near them. But the profound, hidden promise here is deeply tethered to the reality of the process. The promise isn't the absence of the struggle. The promise is His absolute, undeniable presence right in the middle of it. Think about the Israelites standing at the edge of the Red Sea. They were trapped with Pharaoh's army closing in behind them and an impossible ocean in front of them. God didn't send a fleet of boats. He didn't teleport them to the other side. He made them walk through the middle of the sea. They had to feel the dampness of the air. They had to walk on the muddy seabed. And they had to look at those terrifying, towering walls of water on their left and their right. Maybe you stood where they stood, staring at a terrifying expanse of water, wondering how you'll ever survive. The miracle wasn't that they avoided the water. It was that the water couldn't destroy them because God was walking right there in the mud with them. This brings us to a second, incredibly crucial revelation in this chapter, found just a few verses later. In Isaiah chapter 43, verses 16 through 18, God reminds His people of His past faithfulness. He says, "Thus says the Lord, who makes a way in the sea, a path in the mighty waters, who brings forth chariot and horse, army and warrior. Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. This is where so many Christians get completely tripped up. We read this and feel a jarring contradiction. God literally just told them to remember how He made a way in the sea, how He defeated the chariots and warriors of Egypt. And in the very next breath, He commands them to forget the former things. Why would God remind you of a past miracle, only to immediately tell you to stop dwelling on the past? It's because when we're stuck, we have a dangerous habit of idolizing how God moved yesterday, and it blinds us to how He wants to move today. We get trapped in our nostalgia. We think, God, why won't you do it like you did it before? Why won't you part this sea just like you parted the last one? But God is trying to shift your gaze. He is saying, I want you to remember my character, but I need you to forget my old methods. Your current situation might not look anything like your past victories. The way God rescues you this time might completely shatter your expectations. If you're constantly looking over your shoulder, waiting for a repeat of yesterday's breakthrough, you're going to miss the entirely new, unprecedented thing God is orchestrating right in front of you. He isn't a predictable formula. He is a living, breathing, creative God who tailors His rescue to your exact present moment. You have to let go of the old blueprint if you want to see the new masterpiece. And that leads us to the absolute climax of this promise, the deepest and most powerful truth in the entire chapter. In verse 19, God declares with roaring authority, Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. Read those last words carefully. He promises to make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. We often misread this because we assume God is going to change our environment. We think He's going to turn the harsh, dry desert into a lush, comfortable garden. We want the scenery to change. But that isn't what He says. He says He will put a river in the desert. The desert remains a desert. The wilderness remains a wilderness. The environment around you might still be incredibly difficult, dry, and intimidating. But God promises to provide a sustaining, life-giving flow of His presence and provision right in the middle of the wasteland. You might be praying for God to change your toxic workplace, to instantly heal a broken family dynamic, or to completely remove a season of intense grief. You want the desert gone. But what if God's greatest miracle right now isn't changing your location, but changing your supply? What if He's giving you peace that makes absolutely no sense given the chaos around you? That is the river in the desert. It's the quiet strength to get out of bed when your heart is broken. It's the sudden, inexplicable joy that bubbles up in your spirit when your bank account is empty. When you feel completely stuck, you don't need a new environment. You need a new source. The river is springing forth right now, beneath your feet, in the exact place where you feel the most abandoned. He is carving out a path where there was only impenetrable brush, and He is pouring out living water where there was only cracked, dusty earth. You just have to open